was nothing I could do, nothing I could do. Hello and welcome to This Is Something I Can Do, Overcoming PTSD and Trauma with Aromatherapy. I'm your host, Amanda May-Fitzgerald. In these unprecedented times, we all desire to make a difference with the division, violence, climate change, and sustainable energy issues. We all know the time for planning has passed. It's time for action, but it is difficult for our voices to be heard. I'm a trauma survivor with PTSD, and my flight, fight, or freeze response is triggered in almost every waking moment in these times. I am learning to overcome my triggers by facing my traumas and putting them in their rightful place. I know many others who are doing the same. We can make a difference in our lives and the world. I am a professional aromatherapist, and through my work, I have found purpose and the tools I need to help myself and others. This podcast will shed light on the effects of trauma and what my guests and I are doing to overcome ours while helping others in the process. Please join us on this journey as we find others using their voice to help trauma survivors too. I'm your host, Amanda May-Fitzgerald, and this is Something I Can Do. I still sit here with it all. Hi.
Hi.
How are you doing today, Zeke?
I'm doing very well, Amanda. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for being on Something I Can Do with me today.
It's my pleasure.
I would like to introduce you to our listeners. This is Zeke Corley of YourInsurancePlace.com. How would you describe YourInsurancePlace.com?
YourInsurancePlace.com is our brand, right? So we actually have two agencies under that umbrella, Bill Corley Insurance Agency and Network One Insurance. Bill Corley is my father, and we just put together, sometimes you get lucky, right? You find a good website name and it just works, right? So YourInsurancePlace.com is our place for our clients to go and access both of the agencies on all of our agents.
Okay, so it's like the umbrella of the two different insurance agencies.
That's correct.
Great. And you are starting your own podcast this fall, is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. It's Same Business, Different Day podcast. And we are really just kind of looking into, business owners everywhere and trying to dig into what makes them and, what took them from where they are to starting their own business. And I think it's going to be a very inspirational podcast to aspiring entrepreneurs.
So I want to talk a little bit about your father's business first. Mm-hmm. Your business, but it started back in 1977 with your father. Right. What was it like growing up with him, having his own business? What did that feel like for you as a kid? Well,
family business is odd, right? I mean, because you have, most people have a family dynamic where there's, some separation there. The parents go off to work or whatever. But there were plenty of times when, the office would be the home office. So, we spent many years, going to the garage just to ask, my parents, who my mom works with him as well, or worked with him as well back then as well. And he would, you go in and ask, can we eat this? Can we do that? Or whatever, just going into the garage. So the insurance business has always been around us, so even when they had the separate office, as I became a teenager, I would go in there and get flyers and, take them around to other businesses to, publicize ourselves and help bring more business in. So I was just always around it. I'd say, it could be a little stressful, right? Because they say, a lot of people say, don't bring work home, but that's exactly what we were doing, pretty much 24/7. I'd hear my parents talking about the business, what happened today, what client needs to be dealt with tomorrow. And, as I got into it, that was kind of my, situation as well. That said, it got a little stressful, when I was a part of the business because, day and night, that's what I'd be talking to my father about. And, you couldn't escape it really.
Right. So it was really just 100% a part of your life, even from the time you were very little all the way into your teen years. You then started helping your father with the business, doing different
Right.
things. And now, what is your position in the business now?
I'm a principal and a broker. So I actually have my license, and I have for it's been 17 years now since I've been a broker with our agencies. And so marketing and sales and everything that's involved with making sure we're bringing in a new client and satisfying our current clients.
How, with your podcast, you really want to encourage other people who maybe are on the brink of deciding whether they want to go into entrepreneurship or whether they want to stay in the status quo. What would you say to those who are considering running their own business?
I'd say that most people consider starting their own business, right? That may not be the path for them.
I know.
Yeah.
I can't really speak to that because, I mean, yes, I always have, but I think I have an entrepreneur bone in me. I don't know, the
Good.
entrepreneur. I've always dreamed of having my own business, but my father owned his own business.
Great.
My family members are also entrepreneurs. My mother was growing up. So
that's awesome. That's great. And that's not everybody's experience, right? Some folks, they grow up in a family where they've all worked for someone else, and it could be good jobs. They could work for a law firm. They could work for, stock markets. But what we do, or my thought process when it comes to that is really that I think everybody's kind of got that bone in their body. And they may not be encouraged, and we're looking to encourage those folks. I mean, kind of when you're growing up, it's like, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be a firefighter, a teacher, and those are all very noble professions. And I don't, I'm not downplaying any other professions. I think they're all necessary and important. But what I just want to do is just inspire those folks who have an idea, they really have maybe even a plan of how they could put up, either it's a brick and mortar business or some other type of business that they just may get discouraged from. They go through school and then they just walk away from those plans and say, you know what, I'll just go into this field, again, which could be a great field, but they kind of break away from really digging in and, going for it, and I just believe that folks who have that in them should at least try to go for it. You can even work for a business and still start your own. There are many options, but at the end of the day, I just want them to see all business owners as being just like them. There wasn't something more special about this other business owner who's had this place here for 50 years than there is about you,
Absolutely. We all have something that we can give back to society, and we all have our own individual strengths that a business could really amplify if somebody felt the courage to give it a try.
Sure. And there are perks to it, right? But at the end of the day, what we would like to do is just interview as many business owners as possible and really just find out about their path, what they want to do when they grew up, and it may not be the same thing. But what you will see, though, is the steps that they went through in order to get to where they are. And then, we'll talk about the journey and the difficulties, what it took to continue to maintain this business throughout the years. I mean, think about the challenges that they may have right now with the COVID-19 and everything that's involved there and how the economy is doing. Imagine the struggles. There are a lot of folks that lost their businesses over the past few months. How could you plan for that, ahead of time, of course, we write insurance, so it's important to have insurance in place for some of the catastrophes that are around. So we do understand that. I have a mind for, dealing with some of those scenarios, but you can't plan for everything. But, you grit through, and, some of these folks will continue to be successful and stay around. There's so many factors in starting a business, right? There's the location, what the industry is, there's, what kind of hours and dedication will it take you have to put into each and every day. But, and then, who do you hire? Who can you trust? There's just so many factors. And
right now,
podcast, we kind of want to discuss it all.
Yeah, especially during COVID-19, a lot of people have lost their businesses, but there's also a brand new marketplace almost that I see emerging. The emphasis has been put, I think, during these times on really taking advantage of our technology. You and I right now, we're in the same building.
Right.
But it's COVID-19 and the podcast room at the Film Hub is not the ideal place to be sitting face to face in. So I'm able to talk to you in your office while I'm sitting here in the podcast room. And so just with Zoom alone and FaceTime and Facebook Live and all these different options that we have, Google Meet, we are able to continue through this time. And there's so many options there for people. But what I want to talk to you about, my podcast is about trauma. I want to see what your perspective is in these times as well with the issue of race and people of color and how they're being targeted. And the systems that are in place that are holding people of color back. What has your experience been with trauma growing up as a man of color?
That's a tough one. That's a deep one. There's so many answers to that, right? And then there's so many systems that you're fighting against, with each and every step, whether it just be the relationships of, who can I talk to? Who is it all right to speak to? Who, will be so upset that I was even in their presence or even in their dining room or area or wherever, right? So and then again, let's talk business owners. You got those folks who may say, you're not welcome here, but that would be more, overt, right? More blatant. But at the same time, there are folks who are descendants of being oppressors, right? And then there are we who are the descendants of the oppressed. And with that in mind, we know that from birth, there are these steps that you have to take because you understand what your grandparents, your great grandparents, went through. So you've got to know your heritage, know what you believe in, so it's not taken away from you. But then you also have to have enough pride, but also have enough of ability to walk the line so that you can continue on and be better than be stronger or be more successful than the generation before you. We're all trying to progress and we're all trying to be equal, as the oppressed. We want to be in the same position and be looked at just like the others, just like anyone else. Yeah. So that's but with that, how hard do you push and who do you push? Who can help you? Who can you trust? So, a lot of this is kind of ingrained in us. And so I do believe that, the PTSD that you're talking about can start from, your first words. It can really be ingrained in you, fear.
Yeah. When you walk around with fear from the time of a small child, when you carry that with you, the traumas of the past.
Sure. Even as a distant example, I mean, I don't know if you like animals, but, people who walk their dog, if they're if they show any fear as they're taking their dog around, then the dog tenses up as well. And the dog is ready to bark at folks. So without even saying anything, that dog can sense that, right? So imagine walking with your mother, or imagine being pushed in a stroller with your mother, and the mother has some fear because of her experiences now. So now you are taking those on as well. So we take those on from generation to generation, but we also are, again, trying to progress. And so with that progression that we're looking for, we want to slowly walk that line forward and just get into a better place for our children after us.
What would you say to people of color that would like to start their own business but don't know how, don't know where to start?
Well,
or that fear is keeping them from doing?
Yeah, and that, forward. That exists. And so that's why that's what the podcast is all about, bringing in folks that have that experience. They've been there. They've been through it. So it's not all just people of color, obviously, that we're interviewing, but, there's a fear and a trepidation for us all when it goes into, writing this check or asking for this loan, but you've got to learn your resources. And that's all that I would say. You study how do you, get finance, how to be successful, what are your demographics, who are you looking to work with, who are you looking to target in your business, and then, what's it going to take to maintain? What's it going to take to continue to be successful? How do you deal with those who may try to, push you out? You just got to learn your resource, and then you learn your competition as well. There's so much that goes into each and every business plan, but if you have a plan, you can succeed, and there shouldn't be the color of your skin that should say that you're not going to be good in business. Agreed.
Have you, on that note with resources, I'm recently reading a book called Profit First. Have you heard of that book?
No, I haven't.
It's by Mike Kalowitz. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm just getting going on it, and I'm looking forward to really diving into it. But it has it's a new way of looking at how you manage your finances as a business, and it's really interesting. So I would encourage you to check it out. I'm going to give it a try, and I'll let you know how it goes. But I just thought I'd bring that up. Are there any resources off the top of your head that you would like to steer people towards?
No, honestly, that's what the guests are for. I want to bring that out of them and share those, experiences with the world. Everybody's got a different way that they either became successful. I mean, the business could have just got passed down to you from generation to generation, or it could have just been an idea that you just said, I'm going to take my credit cards and go for it. It could have been, a new wave, right? Like all of these apps that these folks develop, and next thing you know, they're selling them for millions of dollars. You just had a great idea. You jumped in, and you jumped in right on time. So good timing. You never know, but although each experience is different, every story is valuable, right? Because we take that information, and then now we can implement it into what we are thinking about doing going forward. So I am really excited about the potential interviews that I'm going to do. I have a radio background. So, nice. Getting information from folks is kind of what I really like to do. And I'm so looking forward to doing these interviews, pulling this information for the world to hear. So I think that those will just be, mini books,
Great. That's awesome. I look forward to hearing your podcast and seeing what else you have for us. I appreciate you being here with me today, being a part of my podcast. And
thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's always good to talk to people, especially like-minded people and people who are trying to do good, right? And I was happy to do it. I was excited about it. We've been talking about it for a few weeks, and like you said, that's a podcast studio that I plan to use as well. So I'm glad that we were able to do it.
It's a great studio. Yeah, I'm glad we're here at the Film Hub together. Right. And maybe we'll do another podcast here shortly. Awesome. Thank you, Zeke. I really appreciate you being here.
You got it. Thank you.
Here is something you can do. Something you can do. This is something you can do. Something you can do. Here is something I can do. Something I can do. This is something I can do. Something I can do.